Welcome everyone. I was just waiting for the recording to start. So today we're going to look at what to consider when putting on a branch event. We're going to look at past experiences. So we'll look at information from 2023 and 2024, but particularly for that information, you'll find that in the annex that we have as a takeaway to take after the event, which will come actually with your committee update that comes monthly, as Laurence mentioned as well. So we will be having a look at that. So I will be looking at what to consider when planning an event, and then Natalie will be going on to the how. If we can have the next slide. Thank you very much. So there are some bullet points here about the main things to consider when putting on a branch event. I know that lots of you will consider some of these already, but we've got a little bit of new information for you as well with these different bullet points. So first of all, your audience, as Laurence mentioned, you get a committee update monthly, and in that committee update, there's some statistics and information about your branch. So it's really important to have a look at that, because then you can tailor your events a bit more to your audience. So for example, if you have a significant number of students in your branch, you could perhaps consider how you could put on student events. If you have a lot of experienced members, professionals, maybe more chartered members, then think about how you can tailor your events to those groups. In our annex, you'll find a slide of information about the levels that were put on and used and submitted to the e-forms last year. And we actually found that quite a few events were showing understand and implement levels, but not so many lead and innovate. So if you have a lot of experienced professionals, you may want to adapt to think about those experienced professionals and lead and innovate within your events. The next thing you need to think about is topics and speakers. So think about feedback from previous events, but also looking at the competency framework and think about the areas within that. And are you covering a broad range of those areas? Again, in the annex that you can have as a takeaway, there's a gap analysis, and there are quite a few competencies that weren't covered in 2023-24. So those could be opportunities for you to cover more of those areas if you're thinking about different areas that you'd like to look at. The next then is format. So virtual, in person, perhaps you're having site visits as well. It's really important to think about the capacity of your committee within that and what's the preference for your committee, but also for your members. In the feedback and in the annex again, we have some information that suggests that members do like both. They do like to have face-to-face and virtual, with advantages to both of those. So it's important to think about that within your balanced programme as well. Really important for in-person, we've got something slightly new. We do have resources to be able to help support with putting on in-person events, particularly thinking about the venues. So we can look for a venue for you, and we can also deal with contracts and liaising with the venue. So please get in touch with your RDM as well if you would like some more information about that, because we can support you with that. Around capacity, really important to think about your committee. How much time does your committee have? How do they work as a committee? And think about delegating within your committee as well. And Natalie will be talking a little bit more about organising your delivery team as well, because that's really important, I think. And she'll speak to you a little bit more about that. Timing and coordination. Again, think a little bit about capacity. So within your committee, making sure that you think about when the best time is for you, but also for your members. When is the best time to be able to get attendance to your events? So I know sometimes that it varies, but we do have lunchtime events, evening events, morning events, which is best for you, your committee and your members. But also think about coordination, not having events too close together and overstretching yourselves maybe a little bit. But within the IOSH team, we're also thinking about coordination a bit and trying to avoid having the same topics twice in a week. So it's really important to think about that too. Your RDM will be looking at your planning, making notes on your planning, and we will be considering Is there a better time for that topic, for example, which will bring more attendance to your event, perhaps? So that would be good too. And the reviewing of previous events is really important. So looking at data and information from your previous events to inform your future plans. So for example, looking at the attendance to an in-person event and considering your venue capacity, how many people you'd like and need, and the size of the room that you need, for example, for your next venue as well. Think about topics that were more popular and topics that people have brought up as things that they need for future events as well. I know you will have considered lots of these points already, and we have seen an uplift in registrations and attendance in recent months. I think part of that as well is partly to do with your comms with LinkedIn and committee mailers. So thank you very much for your work on that. It's really showing some good success, thinking about these different things when we're planning, and it seems to be paying off as well. I'm going to hand over to Natalie now.
Thank you, Liz. That was great. Just now we're going to look in the how, and that are the keys to how to deliver a successful event. So I want to really cover and kind of let you know what we will be focusing on in terms of what it takes, the key elements. So we'll be looking at the groundwork that needs to be laid by the principal officers. We'll look about how the delivery team is absolutely key to the success of your event, effective promotion and communication, using the checklists, professional branding, a backup plan should you need one, and review and follow up, which is bringing everything full circle. Okay, so those are the elements that we feel are really crucial to the success of your event. So let's start with the groundwork that needs to be laid. This is where we pull together all the principal officers and the event lead. And just to go over what some of that looks like. So the chair is important in terms of delegating and agreeing the delivery team. You'll see across these next slides that I will constantly use the term success and delivery team on so many slides because I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. But when you're planning the what, at that stage, the chair will need to agree who is on that delivery team, and we'll cover the roles in just a bit. In part of the organization and part of the delivery team ahead of time is the event lead, and they usually are the speaker liaison, and I'll cover that in more detail in a minute. The treasurer is very important. The treasurer gets the venue quote if you're looking for a new venue. And also can liaison getting the contractor booking form and arrange payment. They also log the planned costs against the actual costs. The comms coordinator is who prepares the promotion for the committee mailer and LinkedIn and also sends a reminder, so very key as well. And let's not forget the secretary who should help in monitoring the branch inbox, because when you're running an event, especially an in-person one, we notice there's a lot of member queries that might head your way. So to monitor your 365 inbox is really key. Okay, so let's cover the delivery team. This is the one chance for all committee members to contribute, and it can be done on a rota basis so that everyone gets an opportunity to, develop in certain areas. It's also a fantastic way to really foster engagement across committees as well. So we really recommend that this be rotated out across your year. It's important that whoever is agreed to be on the delivery team take it as a responsibility that if they cannot attend, that they find a replacement as soon as possible. And we also suggest that you consider having a standby at your events with an extra person in the eventuality that somebody key on the delivery team gets called away on the day. So, without further ado, let's talk about the event lead in more detail. So as I mentioned before, the event lead is usually the one that is the one that sources the speaker, and they liaise with the speaker on the topic, the target audience, and the details. They usually tend to be the one also that completes the network's activity e-form. They shared the registration link with the committee, whether that's the Zoom link or the Eventbrite link, and they send the consent form link to the speaker and the registration link as well. If it's an in-person event, they may check with the venue and confirm the catering and room layout. And they also should do a check-in with the speaker a week before the event. Now, also need to mention here that event leads, where it's agreed, do not need to attend the event. They tend to be play a part ahead of the actual delivery date of the event. So that's key. I think I've heard conversations in committees where they said, well, I've got a great speaker, but I'm going to be on holiday. Then it's the work for the event lead is usually ahead of the event. So keep that in mind. So then we go to if it's a virtual event that you're running, then we have the tech host. So I'm just going to bring all these little bubbles up anyway, so you can see them. The tech host is what you need to start your event and do all the techie bits. You would use our Zoom host key ahead of time, usually 20 to 30 minutes ahead of time. Open the event early for a run through, but the first thing you would do is enable the waiting room. And basically that then helps you separate out your speaker and your delivery team to have the run through and keep all the delegates in the waiting room. Really important to do that. And the next thing that you need to do is admit your delivery team and speaker for the run through and make them co-hosts so that they can share their screen and make sure all of that is functioning properly. And then they will admit everyone else that's in the waiting room when the event starts. And if there's going to be a recording, if that's pre-agreed, they can press record as long as everyone's been, if they've been told that it is being recorded. And at the end, they close the event. So those are simple steps and tasks that need to be done, but they're really crucial in the success of your event. And so we really, urge you to ask us if you have any questions on any of this because it's quite straightforward and it may need some practice, but a really key role. So the next is the event chair. And oftentimes it's assumed that the event chair is also the chair of the committee. And it can be, and oftentimes it is, but it doesn't have to be. The event chair is a great opportunity for anyone on the committee to develop their leadership or presentation skills. So we do recommend that that gets shared out too. So what they do is they are responsible for preparing the event agenda ahead of time, and that would include the welcome, the housekeeping, the branch updates, and speaker details for the intro. They would also ensure that the slides they are using are up to date with our IOSH branding, and I'll cover a bit more of that in a few minutes. And if it's a virtual event, they join the 20 minutes ahead of time for a run through or would be expected to arrive early at the venue. So they would begin the event as per the agenda. They would do the welcoming and they would introduce the speaker. And then after the Q&A, they would thank and close and remind everyone to complete the feedback survey. So that's really just the basic kind of template that the event chair would use. The next one, really key, is the Q&A facilitator. We don't want for the event chair or the tech host, for instance, to do all of these roles or try and cover them. It's really important they're clearly defined and delegated out because there's much to do for each person on the delivery team. So the Q&A facilitator, if it's virtual, joins 20 minutes ahead of time to do the run through or arrives at the venue earlier, just like the event chair. And a virtual monitors the chat box for questions and collates the ones that are most relevant. They may plant interesting questions as agreed with the speaker. And sometimes that's a good idea just to get open the conversation. People are a bit reluctant to speak. So that really helps things move along and opens up the floor. So after the speaker's presentation, they then look at the questions and ask the ones that are the most relevant, but also keeping an eye on the time because we really do need to stick to closing when we've said things are going to close. People have commitments in life and give their time to attend something, and we need to then let them go at the agreed time. So it's also important, whether it's the event chair, the Q&A facilitator, to also communicate to the delegates that they will be picking up the most relevant questions because you can't ask them all, and some of them aren't going to be relevant. Some of them are going to be more, not really relevant to others in the audience. So just to manage expectations around that is really important. Okay, so there's additional tasks that need to happen when you hold an in-person event, and that you may want to bring along some extra volunteers or add these tasks to the delivery team. So, for instance, you want somebody that's going to be responsible to set up the tech and audio and the room layout, whether you're going to have cabaret style seating or whatever. If you've got, uh, different ways of doing things, including the venue, making sure that, laptops are fitting with what the venue's got in the room. So somebody that's going to liaise with the speaker and, welcome them in and um, make sure that their presentation and slides work, and also the venue. They probably will have people on staff asking, whether teas and coffees can be served or have last minute questions. So all that type of thing. And then crucially and very importantly, we need somebody to do the check-in of delegates using Eventbrite. At the moment, that's the platform we're using. And it's suggested that you use the app to do that because it's quite simple. But if not, there's ways around it. And you can download the list of who's registered. But it's really important that we get the data, not just the numbers, but the data of who attends the events. Um, so also, we need people to really meet and greet and network with the delegates. And so just to make them feel like they're walking into a welcoming community. And then, of course, at the end, we'll need people to help clear up the room. So those are all the things to think about. Quite straightforward for your in-person events. Now, mentioned before, we're going to talk about the checklist. Now, we put these together a few months ago, and we found that we've seen some brilliant examples across some committees where they're being used. I've seen volunteers use these on an Excel spreadsheet to track where they are with the organization of the events and as a program tracker. So really, really important that you use this. So I'm not going to cover every step, but I just want to cover some of the highlighted bits on here. So you will have received a virtual event checklist and an in-person one. This is the virtual one. Now, I know we say that we want at least 2 weeks notice before we get an e-form from you to put on your Zoom event. However, we really recommend that some of the planning before that, like liaising with the speaker and agreeing your delivery team, happens at least 5 to 4 weeks earlier than the event date. So between 3 and 2 weeks at the latest, that's when, your networks activity e-form should come in. If it's earlier, that's great. Just not any sooner than that. And that's because we need to be able to promote it to members and, process the event request. So, um, again, I highlighted promotion because I cannot say enough that if there's been great events and the promotion has been weak, then that really affects attendance, and it's a lost opportunity for CPD, and also it's not great for the speakers who've given their time to deliver. So we want that, we know committee mailer is very well received. This is a lot of our members, that's how they really get their event information. And of course, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really important because it also reaches non-members. So all your colleagues that are out there who may not be IOSH members, think of them and promote, through posts on LinkedIn. So again, on the event day, as I've mentioned before, it's important to have the run through 20 minutes ahead of time and just go through the steps there. And I will say here as well, and this is relevant to the in-person one too, but to have a post-event review is really important. You want to look at your delegate feedback, as well as you yourself want to, at your next committee meeting, give yourselves a pat on the back because you deserve it, but also look at what, could be improved. What worked really well, but what could we do better or different next time? So that just is a great way of ensuring that you just keep moving towards what a really successful event looks like. So that takes us to the one that's got a much longer timeline, and that's for the obvious reasons, and that's your in-person event checklist. So we suggest that, at least 12 to 10 weeks before your event date, that, and we have roles under here that we just recommend. Usually this is undertaken by the treasurer, so that they request a quote, a contract, and if the venue is new, that they set them up as a new supplier so that they can receive payment. So all of this requires the treasurer. Oftentimes we get asked, what does the treasurer do? What can the treasurer do? They're really important in, again, the groundwork up towards, the delivery of a successful event. So again, highlighting at that time, if not before, to agree your delivery team, and then no sooner than 9 weeks, again at the latest, to do your networks activity e-form. After that, our RDMs will look at the e-form and either come back to you and say, not all the information's there, or they will, use our decision matrix to make sure our decisions are consistent, and then right away, approve that, and then we can set that up on Eventbrite, and then a link will be sent to the event lead. And we've already covered what the event lead then does with that. So that then goes to the committee and to the speaker so that everyone, can then do that. And that includes the comms coordinator who will need that link to promote it. So that's usually done within 1 week, depending on whether all the information has been submitted onto the e-form. And at the same time, the event may already have been approved, but we'll be processing whether it's a contract or whether it's a booking form, or we're setting someone up for payment. That happens in parallel at that time. So again, promoting the event should be happening not long after that. There needs to be a reminder a week, before that, and the event date. Now, I did cover some of that already, but crucially, again, highlighted is your post-event review. So in terms of the in-person event, you may want to consider how delegates felt about the venue. How was parking? Was it accessible? Were there traffic issues leading up to it? So lots of things to consider in your review. And as Laurence mentioned earlier, we, are able to offer some support with sourcing new venues should you want to look at some options as well. So have a think about that, how things were. So, you may want to talk to your delegates while you're there as well. And what was your own experience there? So please use these checklists. They're really, you know, kind of give you a guide throughout the weeks on where things are. And I think everyone should feel like they're taking part. They've got an active role here that they're accountable for. And certainly there's enough work for everyone across the entire committee if that's shared out, across putting different people on the delivery team for different events. And like I said, I've seen some brilliant examples how this is being used on Excel by some committees. So I mentioned branding. You want to visually also appear to have an event that looks professional. You will all have your own, in your 365 account, you will have been given your own branch logos and also your visual meeting backgrounds and PowerPoints as well. And they come in a variety of different colors. So all of these were placed in your 365 account folder. So have a look for these and please use them. If you're not sure where they are, please ask your RDM where you can find these. Now, a backup plan, a contingency plan. So, everything seems to be going right and then something doesn't. What do you do? Don't panic. Um, we just need to just share with you a couple of tips in the eventuality that your speaker does cancel, or, some sort of weather event happens or anything like that. So, um, I'm going to go through a couple of scenarios, but there's a rule of thumb that whenever possible, never run an event that's advertised as having one topic and one speaker and then surprise delegates with something else. They would rather have you cancel it and reschedule. So that's the feedback we've gotten over the years. So just keep that in mind. Don't feel pressure to go ahead if it's a last minute cancellation. If it's virtual, then opt to cancel and reschedule. Okay, and inform head office, and we will be able to contact those who are registered on there and just send an email out saying, due to unforeseen circumstances, we will look to reschedule this at a later date. If it's an in-person event and it is near the date, then you may wish to have an alternate plan, so a plan B. And this could be a presentation from a volunteer within the committee that you have on hand that somebody feels they can present, or it could be a very structured, so workshop type thing, you have a discussion group, you plant questions around OSH related topics across the tables and then have a way to share that, but make sure that it's very structured or it's difficult to manage that if it's not all pre-agreed and structured ahead of time. So that's what you may want to do if it's an in-person event and it's near the date and your speaker cancels or is stuck in traffic. If it's an in-person event and it's far in advance, then we do suggest that you just go ahead and cancel that and inform head office. And of course, then we will let the delegates that are registered know that we will schedule that another time. So just a few eventualities and plan Bs to keep in mind should that happen. And it does happen. And I must say that people are very understanding. So, just realize that they know life happens and they are just grateful for the next time that you run a CPD event for them. So, the things that we've covered in the how of running a successful branch event is the importance of laying the groundwork and your principal officers. The delivery team is absolutely key. Effective promotion and communication will make sure that your event is out there and that people, not just members but non-members, know about it. And remember, it's always a great way to encourage membership growth as well. Use the checklists. You don't have to do an Excel template like some branches have done, but use it for reference on where you are. You've all got busy day jobs, so you want to be able to make sure that you've got something to reference on where you are. If you're a chair or you're a comms coordinator, how far are you from the event date? Have you done what you're meant to be doing? This is there to help you. It's a tool. And make sure that you use the professional branding that we've provided. It's going to make a difference because members don't know that you're not IOSH head office all the time. They just see this as an IOSH event. So it really provides a more cohesive professional image. And of course, we touched on some tips for the backup plan should you not have the speaker there either close to the time or ahead of the time. And again, to go back to full circle, we keep urging you to please review and follow up. So review your feedback, um, your own feedback, and those of your delivery team on how things went, and then make changes, make recommendations, and discuss those as a committee. So that's really key. And I would say also don't forget to give yourselves a pat on the back for all the good work you've done as volunteers. So that's really it. Those are the keys to the hows of a successful branch event. Thanks very much.